Some breaking news on this front, just in from the New York Times this evening. New reporting tonight about what the Obama administration learned in its final days about Russian interference in the presidential election and the remarkable steps it took to protect the evidence from the incoming administration. This piece, again, just out in the last hour, the New York Times reporting that as the Obama administration learned more about these possible contacts between Russia and close associates of Donald Trump during the campaign, the White House tried to spread the information it was gathering to as many government agencies as possible, in part to prevent the incoming Trump administration from finding, covering up, or destroying the evidence. Joining us now, one of the reporters who broke the story tonight. It's a triple byline piece in the Times. Matthew Rosenberg is with us. Matthew, to start with, how does an administration go about spreading out and squirreling away evidence they fear could get lost with the change of government?
Well, it does a few different things. You know, you have to remember a lot of the intel on this is coming in really late. They're recognizing November, December, January, this kind of scope of this Russian campaign and the suspicions about contacts, what these contacts between the Trump associates and Russians were. And so they're rushing to kind of take all this raw intelligence, put it into finished analyses, finished reports, and then kind of do those reports at the lowest level of classification that they could possibly do so that as many people in the government could read it. And the idea there was that, you know, you don't want to be in a situation where only so many people know it. It's much easier to contain that information. So you spread it out. And then you take that raw intel and you take the most sensitive information, the sources' names, the human intelligence names, and you put that into the deepest compartments you can find, into places where only people with intelligence clearances are going to get to it. You're not going to get political appointees looking at it, things like that. And I think that was kind of the bigger idea here, that you wanted to get this out there, and you wanted to then leave a bit of a trail of breadcrumbs, such as it is, for investigators, especially congressional investigators. One of the ways you could do that, and we were told people did, is every day there are intelligence briefings that go on. You ask a briefer specific questions. They have to come back with written answers. Those written answers are archived, and any, say, Senate investigator would know to go look at them.
Your headline is grabbing enough, and it came in as a New York Times alert on a lot of people's devices tonight. Obama administration rushed to preserve intelligence of Russian election hacking. But it's your second graph that reads so stone cold that you realize this has to be seen as at least a potential threat to this administration. American allies, including the British and the Dutch, have provided information describing meetings in European cities between Russian officials and others close to Russia's President Vladimir Putin and associates of President-elect Trump, according to 3 former American officials who requested anonymity in discussing classified intelligence. Separately, American intelligence agencies had intercepted communications of Russian officials, some of them within the Kremlin, discussing contacts with Mr. Trump's associates. It goes on from there. What happens now? Knowing about the bulk of what's there to be discovered, what is already known to some people with security clearances, how does this affect the ongoing investigations?
Look, I want to be fair to the people who were having these meetings, that what was going on in those meetings is still remarkably unclear, and nobody knows for sure. Those conversations, we're talking about these contacts, but what exactly they were doing with them still is not clear. And even who exactly, what the Trump people knew. Some of these Trump people were business people meeting with other business people. Unfortunately, in Russia, there are very blurry lines between who's in business, who's in intelligence. But I think the bigger point here is there are questions that need to be answered. And this is going to push for more of those answers. Because right now, the never happened, didn't see it, don't know anything about it, that just isn't lining up with what a lot of other people are telling us.
Matthew Rosenberg, one of 3 authors of tonight's breaking news in the New York Times. Matthew, along with Adam Goldman, Michael Schmidt in Washington, thank you so very much for finding time to be with us at the top.
CIA-trained defense intelligence officer. He's retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. Colonel, you know, there have been leaks about phone calls between the president and leaders of Australia and Mexico, as well as the investigation into the Russian alleged interference in the hacks into the DNC.
Right.
Are leaks by Obama officials the problem?
Absolutely, and I put this right at the feet of John Brennan and Jim Clapper, and I would even go so far as say the White House was directly involved before they left. I'd put this in the form of Ben Rhodes and those folks. Let's be clear on this. I've watched this very carefully, the coverage, and when you have NBC reporting that they've talked to 6 officials who have seen the transcript, someone is basically giving away both sensitive methods, the fact that they read a communication that was intercepted by sensitive methods, and more importantly, that they're saying that they saw this information which was beyond top secret, which tells me that clearly someone had to have access to that, and that is a key issue. Who leaked that information? And most importantly here, to Dennis's point and to Laura's point, is that the implication made by these officials to NBC and other outlets was that there was something sinister in it, which I agree with Sean Spicer. I don't believe for a minute that there was anything in there that was illegal. Mike Flynn's a pretty smart guy. He knows his phone calls are probably going to be intercepted or reviewed at some point. I'm sure he talked about sanctions, but not in the way that it was portrayed by the left. So
Colonel,
I do believe
the sanctions came about again because of the Obama administration putting them in place over the findings by the intelligence community that it was Russia that hacked into the DNC. And we have Democrat Representative Adam Schiff. He's a ranking member in House Intelligence. He said it was yes, the leak that brought Flynn down, not his lie. In other words, if it wasn't leaked, no one would know about this mess, and he was talking about sanctions with Russia. What do you make of that?
Well, look, the way I see this is the bottom line is the White House would have to find out what Mike Flynn did or did not say. And let's remember that this is an issue apparently between the Vice President and Mike Flynn. And let's remember that when a White House is settling in, you're going to have a lot of personality conflicts pop up. Maybe there's something here we're missing on that.
Yeah, but Mike Flynn also works for the American people, and it's the geopolitical issues at stake with Russia and the war on terror.
And I read his resignation, and yes, he was during that period of December when this all happened, calling all the world leaders that he was going to have to be dealing with. So I don't believe for a minute this was a Logan Act violation. I believe this was one thing that was said. Hey, when we roll in, when we're in charge, this will all be revisited.
Yeah,
that's it.
Colonel,
and he has the right to say that.
I mean, let's be clear. I mean, President Obama said to Medvedev, I can be more flexible when I'm president. I get it. But again, this is in the context of a potential crime of the Russia hacking into the DNC. And now, to your point, would you support a bipartisan push about Republicans and Democrats demanding an independent probe into Flynn? Do you support that? Because we've got top Republican supporters like Roy Blunt and Bob Corker and Lindsey Graham. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because the fingers that they're going to be finding are pointing back at the former White House and some Democrats. The Democrats have been behind this, and I would go so far to say some of the Republicans have also been involved in some of the leaks. So bring it on. I think it's a good idea, and I think like we saw in the Detroit recount when they were recounting Michigan's votes, turned out to be voter fraud in all these Democrat precincts. I think it's what we're going to find here, so go right ahead.
Colonel Tony Shaffer, always good to have you. Thank you, sir.
You too.
And finally tonight, the factor tip of the day. Barack and Michelle Obama score a big book deal. Penguin Random House has bought 2 books, one written by the former president, the other written by the former First Lady. No money was announced, but we can safely assume publishing house paid about $30 million for both books. Now, here's an interesting wrinkle. The Financial Times newspaper reported that HarperCollins was bidding on the books and then said, quote, the deal would bring the Obamas into the same publishing house as Bill O'Reilly, the author and Fox News Channel presenter who has been one of the former president's fiercest critics, unquote. Number one, I haven't done business with HarperCollins for more than a decade. Holt is my publisher. That is a division of Macmillan. Number two, I was not one of President Obama's fiercest critics. I analyzed him in a fair way. Thankfully, the Financial Times has changed those things in its article, and we appreciate that. But once again, please do not believe what you read in the print press, anywhere. My directions to the Factor staff are simple. You cannot rely on published reports anymore. You always have to confirm them yourself. Factor tip of the day.
While it's only a couple of weeks since the inauguration, there's complete evidence, we've seen nothing that we can work, that I can work with President Bush on, and I'm disappointed because I thought that there might be some interest because of what he said in the campaign, which turns out to be not true, a hoax, and really dangerous to the economic stability of America's working families.
And families in Yeah, in Aleppo. And the fact that he is wrapping his arms around Putin while Putin is continuing to advance into Korea, I think that he is leading himself into that kind of position where folks will begin to ask, what are we going to do? And the answer is going to be, eventually, we've got to do something about him. We cannot continue to have a president who's acting in this manner. It is dangerous to the United States of America.
Fundamental right to vote. A person who has exhibited so much hostility to the enforcement of those laws.
The senator is reminded that it is a violation of Rule 19 of the standing rules of the Senate to impute to another senator or senators any conduct or motive unworthy or becoming a senator.
Ask leave of the Senate to continue my remarks.
Is there objection?
Object.
I appeal the ruling.
Objection is heard. The senator will take her seat.
Thank you.